Hottie, we've been trying out a number of Floyd's products for the past couple of weeks. How are you liking them?
Oh, man. So far, my smoothies have been coming out great. I primarily use the vanilla when it's a smoothie, like in the blender type smoothie. So I'm putting like bananas and almond butter and then some of the vanilla Floyd's powder in there. If I just go for like a recovery drink alone where I'm just shaking up in a water bottle, then I grab the chocolate, which I love as well. So I'm already finding reasons for the vanilla and the chocolate protein powders.
Yeah, I have been going through the protein powder recovery mix at a crazy pace because I'm not the only one using it. I'm a big fan of taking a scoop of the vanilla, taking a scoop of the chocolate, putting it in the bullet mixer, and it tastes great. It goes down easy, and I think I'm noticing a little bit of good effect from the CBD, right? The little bit less inflammation this early in the season. My wife, who is doing huge volume in running, is a big fan, and we've already gone through one of the bags. So, I think that you and I are both going to say big thumbs up to the Floyd's recovery mix.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have a little recipe going there too. So maybe some type of Floyd's fatty cocktail will be coming out of this podcast soon.
Our first recipe book coming up soon. Next week, you and I ought to make sure we get out the balms. I have not tried any of the balms yet. Have you got those out?
Yeah, I do. I'm ready for some review for the next show.
You're balmed up?
Oh, yeah. And I've put it to good use already. I'm balmed up. Very good.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's do that and make sure that next week, we'll give a little bit of a report on that. I'm going to do some intense efforts so that I can see how I like the cooling balms afterward. And for our listeners, be sure to check out Floyd's of Leadville. They are our presenting sponsor at floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount on your first 2 orders.
And of course, thanks to Floyd's of Leadville for sponsoring this show.
3, 2,
1. Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It's the first emergency bonus episode of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country.
Yeah, this is going to be a weird episode for us because we aren't exactly used to having news on this show. Of course, there's always a lot to talk about. We've got the course, we've got, how to get ready, how to train, what kind of gear to use, all of that. But this time we have actual news.
Yeah, so cue the ticker. We've got some big news, a big change to how the 2019 race will start. For the first time ever, the Leadville 100 will be moving to a wave start. We're going to talk through it, what it means for your race, to your crew, to the course, to that 12-hour shotgun blast, everything.
Yeah, and we are going to speculate and pontificate like a couple of old men sitting on rocking chairs on the back porch. But we will also be bringing in Kimo Seymour, who is going to have actual knowledge toward the end of the show.
Right. A little behind the curtains info for our listeners here, Fatty, very important. And Fatty and I, of course, are recording most of this on Monday, February 18th, but we'll be interviewing Kimo Tuesday, the 19th, which means that it's entirely possible that some of what Kimo has to say will directly contradict what we say.
Yeah, I would say let's move that possible up to probable, but we're going to leave it all in anyway. So, Hottie, what are you out of right now?
What am I out of right now? What do you mean by that?
So, for gels, for your Morton drink mix, for your bonk breaker bars, are you all stocked up or are you running low on anything?
I actually have a personal connection with bonk breakers, so I tend to have some of those around. I'll tell you what, though, I have recently gotten back to gels, goo gels, so I am running low on goo right now.
Huh. Yeah, this time of year, I am sort of down to this and that. I have weird samples of stuff I don't even know what brand it is that I've gotten in swag bags of various races and stuff, which would be okay if I weren't doing my first endurance race of the year in less than a month. True Grit Epic, check it out. And I have been starting, of course, serious training for Leadville. And I need to get comfortable with my racing nutrition products again.
So you are making a order with the feed then?
I am. I'm putting a big order together. And the nice thing is with this feature that I'm about to tell you about, I won't have to make another order after this one. Have you seen the Feeds auto ship feature? It is great. It's this simple tool for stuff you use all the time. You make your order like you always would, but then you choose the auto ship option, which you just specify how much of what you want shipped and how often. Then bam, you're subscribed and you don't run out again.
Man, I'm checking that out now. It looks like you get a pretty good discount when you do that. 15% on the first order and then 5% on every order after that. And it's worth noting that our podcast listeners can get a great price on a pack curated for Leadville racers. Go to thefeed.com/Leadville for our Leadville pack and be sure to use the code Leadville15 for a 15% discount on either of those boxes.
Yeah, and maybe subscribe to that. So one last thing, you can always use the Leadville 15 code for buying any amount of Morton at a 15% discount. And I will be using that product again during all of my races this year, including the one I've got in March.
Again, thefeed.com/Leadville and use the Leadville 15 code at checkout.
Hottie, I live in this tiny, weird, little bike-centric universe. I was sitting watching the news yesterday, and I got a DM from someone asking if I had heard that Leadville 100 had moved to a wave start. And astonishingly, considering how I live and what I care about, I had not even heard about this. So I looked it up, and it's true. With everything going on in the world, after I heard that, that is the news item that gripped me for the entire rest of the day. That was the thing that kept me from sleeping at all last night. Basically, I wanted to put together a bonus episode as soon as possible so we can just start a conversation, sort of talk what this means.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's begin with the basics, like a little history here with the Leadville race, how things were and how things have changed. You know, way back when, the earlier you got up, the better your position at the start line. I mean, it was kind of a free-for-all. Get up at 3 a.m., go to the start line, lay your bike down, hope it's there where you left it when you return to 6th and Harrison come start time. Then came corrals. I think that was around 2012, because I know when I did the race in 2011, it was the free-for-all thing. And then sometime after that, corrals came into place. The race used previous finishes of the LT 100 or qualifying times at other races to put racers in color-coded corrals, gold, silver, red, and so on. And corrals or not, it's always been a shotgun start at 6:30 a.m. Ken Klober shoots that 12-gauge straight into the air, hopefully, and everyone rolls out of town. It's a big line, so if you're in the back, you're minutes away from crossing the starting line.
Yeah, more minutes as the race has grown bigger. It's now at the point where if you crane your neck around and try to see the end of the race, it is hard to do. Or if you were at the back to crane, stand on your tiptoes and look forward, it's hard to see the front of the thing. Starting this year, though, when you start is going to change a little bit. So wave number 1 is going to be the people who are in the gold, silver, and red corrals, people who either have or have either finished a previous Leadville 100 in under 8 hours and 15 minutes, I believe, or have done a qualifier in a similar time. They start at 6:30 a.m. That first wave is a relatively small group. And then there's a 4-minute gap while they head on down the road. At 6:35, green and purple start. And I'm curious whether they are going to fire the shotgun again. I kind of hope they do. Everyone should be able to start the race with a shotgun. And just so that you have a picture in your mind, as this second wave, green and purple, these are people who are basically 10 hours or better time, 10:30 finish times in previous years. So still a good, fast group. They are going to be starting. And at that time, wave one is basically they've made the turn after the right turn after the high school. They have made the left turn bend onto Turquoise Lake Road, and they've made that sort of veering right onto the second Turquoise Lake Road. There's like 3 roads called Turquoise Lake Road for some reason. And they are about half a mile or so from that second right bend onto the flat stretch before you actually start doing the St. Kevin's dirt road. So that's kind of where the first group is when the second group starts. Wave 3 then, which is your orange and blue corrals, they start at 6:40 a.m. And by then, wave 1, it has hit the dirt road and has been on it actually for 2 or 3 minutes, just depending how fast they are. Then there's one more 4-minute delay. And finally, wave 4 starts. And that is the people in the white corral, which is Leadville first-timers or haven't done it in a while, people who did not go do a qualifier. And so they're in the back. And that's a group that has fast people as well as people who are, truly neophytes to this whole racing thing. And by then, wave 1 has strung out a bit, of course. And when wave 4 starts and rolls off of that starting line, a few people on wave 1 have started climbing St. Kevin's. So you've got a pretty good range of folks out there by then. Now, this is probably not going to be big news to everyone, but it is big news to some of us. The difference between me and Hottie is, I really learned a lot how much of a difference there is between you and me, Hottie, is when you and I rode the beginning of Crusher. I had a super easy time at the beginning of that race last year because I was like, you're a remora fish. For people like me, this new wave start is a big deal. It removes one of the scariest parts of the race. One of the 3 times I've hit the deck during the Leadville 100 was less than 100 yards into the race when a guy wearing headphones and feeling like it was on the pavement in the first mile of the race that he was going to make the difference in his day, blasted his way through the field and clipped my bars, causing a yard sale that early in the race that made it hard for me to ever really get my head back into the race. So, I care and I'm super excited. Maybe more than you are. I don't know. We'll have to hear what your thoughts are on this because this is definitely going to make a big difference to me and to my starting line anxiety.
Yeah, and I'm different in the fact that I have enough criterium experience that the ride out of town never really bothered me because I just know how that goes. To me, it felt like a crit, except we were on mountain bikes. And so I always treated it with a certain level of, I guess, cautious aggression, where I would just keep moving up, which was that's what I was taught in a crit. Try to find the front, try to find your safe zone. So that's how I always treated the ride out of town. I never have or don't have some of the anxieties that you might have about leaving 6th in Harrison. Now, some of the things I think are worth bringing up, not that I'm opposed. I think this is a great idea. They should definitely try it, but they should also be willing to do some self-examination at the end and determine whether this is really the right thing to do, not for the guys at the front or for Fatty or for me, but for that guy sitting there behind a Harrison up near the old gym waiting to get his start. Is it good for that person sitting in 900th place at the start line?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what this should be about. Now, obviously, by doing this, they're digging away or shoving aside a lot of the tradition that is the Leadville 100. I mean, part of its allure is the fact that everyone, 1,500 riders, are standing there together in unison, waiting for the same shotgun blast, waiting for the same 3, 2, 1, go. We're all doing that. And that's one of the cool things about the race, and that definitely goes away. You do get rid of that. Corrals or not, kind of the funny thing is about the corral system too that's happened over the years is, as you get a couple minutes before the start time, they drop the ropes of the corral and everyone just bunches up together anyhow. And it does. Yeah. It's kind of a cool thing about the race. The other thing that kind of goes away is that countdown clock at the end. Now, Since the institution of chips, I mean, the countdown clock hasn't met what it has in the early stages, the early years of the Leadville 100. And the countdown clock at the end is just kind of cool because you can go there at the end of the day and see those people who are racing against that 12-hour mark. It's going to be a little harder to, I think, get a feel for those last survivors at the end by doing a wave format. You just won't really know if that guy on the border of missing the 12-hour thing or not. And I think it'll be a little tougher to gauge there.
It'll be a little harder, but I don't think it'll be as much harder as you might think. I mean, remember that in 2018, the last person to cross the finish line probably crossed at 6:36 a.m., right? So 6 minutes after the first person started. This year, the last person to cross the finish line will be at about 6:46 a.m., so 10 minutes later. So there is, there's a temptation to think of it as being like it's going to be a 15-minute larger gap. But really what it is it's a 10-minute larger gap because it already took 6 minutes for everyone to get across that finish line. Now what it's going to, and we can get into what I think we ought to do, and whether there are alternate ideas. But I think what they ought to do is set have a second clock that is started when the last person crosses the finish line.
Good idea.
All right, I'm sorry, not the finish line, the starting line.
The start line, right.
So, yeah, so and fire the shotgun 12 hours after that. So you have the last person crossing the starting line at 12:46 a.m. At 6:46 a.m. I'm sorry, I'm getting my numbers messed up here, but at 6:46 p.m. fire that shotgun again because then it has been 12 hours for everyone.
But like you said, Fatty, there are a lot of reasons to do this. I mean, safety is a primary concern, giving people space, giving folks a chance at least to find their own spot within the race and not having to battle slower racers or people who have mistakenly moved up and then moved back. There's a lot of good reasons. We've seen other prominent races do this. You mentioned the Crusher and the Tusher. They've stuck with waves over the years. They tried to waver off of them just the past summer, but Burke was convinced that he should keep waves, and that's exactly what he did. Belgian Waffle Ride, which is becoming a massive ride. I've done it twice. I did it 1 year without waves, but Michael Marks quickly moved that to a wave race because of the amount of traffic he had to deal with at the start of that race. And again, you lost a little bit of that feel of everyone moving out of town together, but the BWR did become a better race because waves were instituted. So I think this is worth a try at the Leadville Trail 100.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point that after the race this year, they should do a really thorough postmortem and pick up experiences from everyone. Do a survey, find out whether people had on the whole, a better day or a better result, or felt like there was something truly that was missing. If part of the soul of the race got disappeared, there are things that matter more than everyone finishing, on average 1.5 minutes faster, picking a number out of the air. Having the soul of the race is, got to be the most important thing. So is this part of it? I don't really know. There could have been an argument saying that taking out the single track at the single track before Sugarloaf, taking that out, that removed the soul of the race, or adding corrals removed the soul of the race. This race has always changed. There didn't used to be the single track on the way to Twin Lakes Dam. Is this a change that is somehow different or worse than others? In my opinion, no. I had advocated for this change, but boy, we have a lot more to talk about, and we're going to speculate and just dig deeper into it. But first, I kind of want to complain about something for a sec, Hottie.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Okay. Yeah.
This is not going to be the only time I complain in this episode. My complaint is about myself. I am just too darn loyal. Do you have any idea how many Sella Italia SLR saddles I have been through in my cycling life?
Yeah. How many Sella Italia saddles can one man go through? I have no idea, actually.
I don't know either, but I would guess probably more than 20. I love the way they fit, hated the way that they were always breaking on me. And, You know that a couple of years ago, I got Jonathan Vaughters to coach me for the Leadville 100. I was hoping to get a sub-8. And I had one of those SLRs break about 7 miles into the course, like right when I hit the dirt. Guess how many SLR saddles I have now?
Well, I remember that year specifically, and I would think after that experience, you would be down to 0.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it exactly right. It is no fun to have a saddle break on you. So you know what saddle I am putting on every single one of my bikes now?
Well, I hope it's one that does a little bit better than the SLR.
It has. It is the Shimano's Pro Griffin carbon saddle. Of all of the mountain, I've got one on every one of my mountain bikes. I've got one on my road bike. You know how I wound up with that saddle?
Well, I know that the Shimano and Pro have a little saddle selector.
Yep, that is what I used. And it is a great little online tool, asks you a few questions. And at least for me, and everyone's different, so I don't know how much luck was involved, but felt like it got the right answer for me on the first try. Just nailed it. And I'm not going to give you what the URL is to get to this, but I will tell you, just Google Pro Bike Gear Saddle Selector, or just Gear Saddle Selector, and get yourself a great saddle that fits well and it doesn't break. And I can't say that it won't break no matter what, but where I used to go through multiple Sell Italia saddles every year, and I love those saddles. And I feel bad dissing them on this show, but the fact is they just never lasted, and I have not broken a single one of my Griffin saddles. It's just as comfortable. It is a great saddle, and not breaking is a good feature for a saddle to have.
And we'll have a link in our show notes about all of this at Leadville100podcast.com. Now, Fatty, assuming your saddle doesn't croak as soon as you start the race, how has the LT100 played out from the starting line for you?
Well, for me and for everyone else, this mass start has always been really interesting in sort of a problem sort of way. The race starts heading downhill on pavement, which is great for big, strong people, like yourself, who can bomb it for 3.4 miles, and because I know the math, of downhill pavement, and then they fly on what is the flattest 3 miles of dirt on the race, just fresh and full of testosterone, and then bam, they hit St. Kevin's, and you know what happens there.
Yeah, all these big guys with big wattages discover power-to-weight ratios and grind down to the smallest gear they have on the infamous St. Kevin's climb. The race behind them then, of course, has to come to a standstill.
Yeah, have you ever experienced this effect?
Yeah, well, I've been slowed down there and on Columbine, of course. No doubt these waves should make the ride out of town safer and prevent something like you just spelled out there. And also, it should clean up some of that Kevin's logjam. But I wonder about 3 other locations on the Leadville course. The Powerline Descent, and we're talking about outbound Powerline Descent, where at the top, the rocky section, after you climb Sugarloaf, the rocky section up top, which is tighter and more technical, that you can have. There can be plenty of traffic up there, enough that you have to change your line into a line you don't want. I wonder what's going to happen up there. The single track, of course, which comes almost to the dam. Well, that's about 2/3 of the way to the dam after you leave the pipeline feed. The single track, you can get stuck behind people who don't have the bike handling skills you might, and getting around them can be problematic. And of course, the top of Columbine, I think, is a real wild card here. I mean, the top of Columbine, if you're anything but maybe gold, silver, or red, walking is probably in your future at the top of Columbine. And I wonder what's going to happen here by doing waves. If maybe guys who are starting behind the red corrals will have a freer run at that top of Columbine section, which inevitably is a walking section for a lot of people. I mean, I know personally I had a chance to clean Columbine once. I had the fitness to do it once. I had started way in the back, but just couldn't because of the amount of traffic. So I think we're TBD on those spots I just mentioned, the Powerline Descent, single track, and the top of Columbine. But no doubt, I think, the ride out of town in Kevin's should get cleaned up, Fatty.
Yeah, it's going to clean up a little bit. And you're right about there's going to be some kind of effect. in these other places where there is a little bit of a funneling effect. St. Kevin's is not the only place where there is a funneling effect where people wind up kind of getting packed in together. I'm going to be interested in Columbine as well. The race is stretched on long enough, like a big piece of taffy, that I just don't imagine it being bunched up no matter what anymore. But, it could be better. I guess it's even theoretically possible that it could be worse. We'll have to see. One thing we do know is that it is going to change how things start for each of the four, we need to say, 4 waves. Let's start with wave 1, how it is going to change their race. In my opinion, it doesn't affect them for the entirety of the first half of the race at all. Wave 1 remains almost unaffected, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, like we discussed already, this change shouldn't even be about them. I think the focus of the change should be on the folks who are well back in the pack. So the gold corrallers, the silver corrallers, they're going to have their free run, and if anything, this helps them maybe a little bit. So they benefit no matter what.
Yeah. And wave 2 is kind of where what we might call citizen racers start being in full effect, where everyone there is not a pro or a neo-pro or used to be a pro, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I actually have a reasonable chance of being in the red corral, so it's not like the first corral is nothing but superstars. And normal people can get into that too. But wave 2, these are the people who are sort of hunting for a sub-9. You can expect that most of them are looking for a good, fast time in the Leadville 100. Mm-hmm. And I would say that they are the ones who might be affected beneficially the most by this change to a wave start, because it used to be that the corrals behind them would be surging from behind them at the very beginning of the race and then would jam them up as St. Kevin's, right? Mm-hmm. Now, these people, this is going to be the 4th and 5th corral. I forget their colors right now, but they're going to be
green and purple, or purple and green, something like that, I think, right?
Yeah. I'm one of those two right now. So they're going to be moving up, moving down to St. Kevin's more or less together, and moving up St. Kevin's more or less together, because this group of racers has more in common than any other of the groups of racers. So for me, it seems like they're not going to have anything behind them. It is to worry about trying to surge past them and then jamming them up at the beginning of the race. And wave 1 is going to be still 4 minutes ahead of them. That isn't going to change during the beginning of the race. Wave 2 has got, this is nothing but pure goodness for them as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, really kind of compartmentalizes them, gives them the space they need to work without the worry of somebody coming up behind them and kind of disrupting whatever strategy they'd put into place for their day. So it should free their mind quite a bit, that they won't be getting mixed up with people that are too fast for them, because certainly they could get in with a red group and suddenly be in over the head and having somebody charge up from behind them. I think, for wave 2, really this is a good move for them.
Yeah. It'll be nice. And honestly, I have a lot of interest in getting into wave 2 for this year, partially, or I'm happy with being in wave 2 or wave 1 this year, just because I think that both of them are going to be well served by this wave start. How about wave 3? What do you think about how is this going to affect them?
Well, this will be an interesting group, and I think this change is a lot about these folks. Like, how will they do with this? Will it really benefit them? This is the heart and soul of the race for me. These people are here because Leadville means a tremendous amount to them. They've worked really hard to be here, just to train and be prepared for the race. So you want to make sure that they have a great experience here. These are folks who are a mix of, some are time trialists, some are climbers, the ones who haven't quite got the whole GC package quite put together yet, but they've really got their heart in this race. They really want to be there. You know, if I were in this
They've
wave,
done it before.
yeah, they've done it before.
Qualified in.
Right, or qualified in and moved up a little bit, you know. So really, I think this change has got to be about these people and address them and help them.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I were in a wave, in particular, in wave 3, I'd be super glad to know that I would not be having that crush of fast guys from the white corral, people who lotteried in and are super fast but did not have time or desire to do a qualifier, to not have that crush of fast people in a panic to push through trying to connect up to someone in the red corral. You know, that isn't going to happen anymore because there's no possibility of that, right? I'd also, as a person in wave 3, I'd probably put a little something extra into moving forward in that wave so that I could get to the bottom of St. Kevin's pretty quickly, because not everyone in wave 3 is going to be a natural born climber. There's a good chance that there will be a little bit of a clot, you know, a little bit of a clump of people jamming up St. Kevin's. So if you can move forward, do move forward. Of course, do it safely, and don't be a Roman candle who burns hot and bright and then goes out.
Well, we should move to wave 4. You know, the Leadville melting pot. Folks who lotteried in. Some are fast guys. Some are just hopeful people. I think, you know, this wave back here to me says, I mean, the folks who were unlucky enough to be in the back of any of the Leadville over any of the years, the one benefit was, well, you got nobody coming up behind you to mess up your day. And all you got is what is in front of you and trying to pass people in front of you. Does their race change with having a wave format? Only, I think, for the folks who might be sitting at the front of these final corral positions and hoping to leapfrog up to a group or two in front of them. Suddenly that opportunity is gone for them. They're probably with the people they're with, unless they're awfully good at bridging, because bridging, a 5-minute gap at Leadville at that altitude is going to be quite a task. So
it'll take a while at least. I think bridging a 5-minute gap by the time you get to the bottom of power line is not at all out of the question. It just depends on what kind of a racer you are. I mean, it's an all-day kind of thing. 5 minutes is going to happen at some point, right? I will say that if you are a super fast guy or gal in the white group, and therefore the white wave, you're not the only one there, right? So if you are looking for people to work with, they are already right there in your crew. Just because you are at the back of the race does not mean that you are with a whole bunch of very slow people. You are with a true melting pot of the Leadville 100 experience. There are going to be some people who are super duper fast, and there are going to be some people who are dreaming of a 13-hour finish. And you will find the people that you ought to be riding with in the white group. So to me, it seems like it's going to be very interesting, and we will see people from the white group still up toward the front of the race by the time they get to the Columbine turnaround. I truly believe that.
And there's always Ty Hall. Look for him. He's made a living now of starting at the back of the field and trying to pass as many people as he can for charity. So just look for Ty and jump on his wheel, and he'll take you way up there.
There you go. I am going to be really interested in the Ty Hall effect in 2019, because I believe that he will have an easier time doing some leapfrogging, because St. Kevin's will not be jammed up for him, right? I don't know what his experience normally is, but I have to imagine that by the time he gets to St. Kevin's, it is pretty well clotted, and he can't do a lot of passing until he makes that hard left turn and things open up a bit. That won't be the case this year. He will be able to go, full gas from the gun, I would say. And while he will be 10 minutes behind people that he normally would only be 6 minutes behind, I don't think that is insurmountable. The over-under on how many people he will pass, I bet that it is no more than 50 fewer than he has in 2018. There, I'm going to go ahead and put a stake down. What do you think of that?
Well, I think his will be the most interesting individual experience regarding waves at the LT100 to compare the number of people he can pass last year to this is going to be quite an interesting little study of the waves in action at the LT100. How about the Fatty effect? What's going to happen to Eldon Fatty Nelson with waves?
I am very curious myself. So there is, I have a reasonable chance of getting into the Red Corral if I have a great day at Silver Rush, which means I need to finish in under 5 hours and 15 minutes. If that happens, I plan to start toward the back of the Red Corral. And I can easily imagine that by the time I get to the bottom of St. Kevin's and start climbing it, I could be at kind of the ragged back of what feels like the race to me. And that will be a very strange sensation to be 7 or 8 miles into the Leadville 100 and look behind me and have it be quiet. That will be very, very odd. Or, as is possibly a little bit more realistic, I'm currently in the purple corral because of my 9:05 finish last year in Leadville 100, which would put me in the back half of the second wave. I think that it is likely that I'm going to move into the front half of that wave, the green corral, with a Silver Rush time better than 5:45, which means I could have sort of the flip side of that, where is everybody effect in the second wave, because I think that if I'm fit and fast, I could be toward the front of the second wave, and it could be kind of weird feeling to be climbing St. Kevin's and not see a sea of people in front of me, which would be the case. I would not, for sure, I'm not going to see many, if any, people from wave 1 by the time I get there, but I might not have hundreds and hundreds of people in front of me when I'm doing that. And so a lot of us, I think, are going to have some new and interesting experiences in not seeing as many people as we had. I mean, it'll be the kind of experience that those of us who were doing this race when it was a couple of years old had, that you see a couple of hundred people at the beginning of the race, and then maybe you're spending a little bit of time on your own. It'll be interesting. Regardless, I would say that by the time I get down from Powerline, there are going to be some very fast, powerful descenders that I hope to be able to get caught up with on Pipeline. And after that, I really do think that the blender effect of the race will be complete. I don't think it'll be easy to tell much of a difference between, after the first 30 to 40 miles of the race of this year versus any other year. Maybe a little bit easier of a time on Columbine because the race will have been more strung out since the beginning, so you might not have to walk as often. If you're less likely, perhaps a little bit, to have someone in front of you at a crucial moment. But that's only statistically true, right? There can always be someone who has a bad moment, and you can always be someone who has a bad moment and make someone else get off. So no matter what, we all got to be nice to each other and help each other have a good day out on the course.
Mm-hmm. Then there's the crewing. I've crewed before. Yeah. It's a fabulous. If you folks are not up for doing this race, but have somebody going to Leadville or know somebody that is, try to make the trip anyhow and go and crew. It is a kick. Now, that doesn't mean it's all fun and games. I mean, there's some stress involved for the crews. They want to make sure they get it right, because if you mess up, you could mess up the racer's day. And one thing that can get messed up when you're standing out there at Twin Lakes Dam is, man, it's just like rider after rider's coming through. Even though, it's a huge course and things do get spread out, the riders keep coming one after another. It's not like they're spaced out. Right. It's easy to miss somebody. The waves should mitigate that a little bit, should offset that a little bit. It should make it a little more like, here comes a group, and you'll see that wave kind of come through, and there'll be some stragglers at the end, and you'll probably get a gap, I would think. Even as far out as Twin Lakes, there should be a little gap, and you should be able to see when that next wave is coming through. And you know how fast your racer is, right? You know about, okay, he's going to move through his wave or not, or he's going to be in the thick of his wave. And it's going to be a little easier just to judge going on site as opposed to trying to watch your watch or your stopwatch, just on site about when your racer might be coming through out of Twin Lakes Dam.
Yeah, it might be a little easier, and especially by the time you get into this, the Twin Lakes Dam inbound and the pipeline inbound aid stations, it's going to be a little more strung out just due to the nature of this. And I think it's going to be easier for you to pick out your racer. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit nicer for crews. One thing that I do wonder about, and this is one of the questions that we'll have Kimo for sure address in the interview we have with him, but which we have not yet heard. So we're going to speculate for a second. Course cutoff times. Yeah. There are people who whose entire goal is to stay ahead of that course cutoff and finish the race in 12 dot something hours. They aren't interested necessarily in getting a belt buckle. They are just interested in finishing, period. And course cutoff times matter to them. If they are starting, 10 minutes later or 12 minutes later or 15 minutes later than they had before, if the course cutoff times don't change at all, their chances of finishing the race go down drastically. Mm-hmm. And because every minute matters. We've seen that before. I don't know. I guess I got to say I'm very hopeful that the Leadville Race Series will just do the simple and easy thing and say every cutoff time is 15 minutes later. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to figure out a way to, adjust those cutoff times. They come at Twin Lakes Dam outbound and then back at Pipeline inbound, and they got to figure it out because people are going to get. There's no way if you're delaying somebody from that shotgun start, what is traditionally the shotgun start, by 15 minutes, that the guy sitting in the white wave is going to be able to make up that time if you keep, keep those cutoff times the way they are now. So, I have a feeling that they know they're going to have to either find a way to integrate the chips somehow or just extend the times out. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, it is. I know that the race organization is highly motivated to have racers finish. They're not your adversary in this. They want every racer to finish. And so my guess is they are going to come up with a solution that is beneficial to racers on this. They're not going to make it so that this race just became 15 minutes harder for people whose fondest desire is to get across the finish line without being cut. Mm-hmm. So fingers crossed. We'll hear more from Kimo on that. So here's a question for you, and this is sort of an ego one. How is this going to affect a racer's morale the first time they see someone from a slower wave pass them? And when I say them, I mean me. I'm thinking, so say I'm in wave 2. The first time I see someone in the white wave, in wave 4 pass me, I'm going to think not just that, wow, that person really moved forward through the field. I'm going to think, wow, that person has made up 10 minutes on me.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's something.
That could be tough to I think even now, Fatty, from racing this thing enough that when you're being passed. When somebody, if you've been in red that morning or green or whatever, and somebody from a corral from behind Harrison comes by you, you can kind of sense it. Someone with a big placard number comes by you, and you race probably with a much smaller number than most people there. You know who that is. That person probably made up a lot of time on you. It is, I think, no matter what they do with wave times or start times, the mental approach to Leadville, which we haven't talked a lot about, but the mental approach is you have to box yourself in mentally and go, this is my race. I am racing my race. This is my pace. This is how fast I go. These are my splits. This is what I'm doing. And if you start worrying about people who are passing you or how many people you passed, you're probably going to get taken out of your game. Now, does that mean you're not going to think about it? Of course. You're going to think about it. It's going to cross your mind, and it'll have a little effect. Just hopefully the racer can see above it, look past it, and just keep moving forward.
And there's the truth that if you can see someone's race plate, then you aren't paying attention to the course, right? Because you have to turn your head around to see their number plate. So you shouldn't be seeing that anyway, right?
Right.
So, but you make a great point. You are doing your race. You are hoping to hit a certain time, or you are doing this to finish it before the shotgun goes off, or you are doing this for whatever reason you are doing this. There is no individual person passing you or a person from a wave passing you that you should really care about. So let's talk a little bit about rerouting. This is kind of a new thing that I wasn't even aware about. That for the folks who are coming down from Columbine, they've gone through Twin Lakes Dam. They are super duper fast. We're talking Jeremiah Bishop fast, and they get to the single track. And there are people who are still coming toward Twin Lakes Dam.
Right.
And so single track versus single track, what happens apparently, and this is another question that we're going to pose to Kimo, what is the rerouting that happens? We understand that there is rerouting that happens with the fastest racers now being 15 minutes ahead of the last starters of the race. It is much more likely to happen. When did they start the reroute? What does the reroute look like? And, what are the effects of that? I'm very interested in that. From what I understand, if you are being rerouted off of the single track, you are kind of in a place where it might take a pretty amazing effort for you to not get cut off anyway. So I don't know how many people that will affect. Hopefully no one listening to this show.
So they're going to reroute the outbound people, not the first place people, not the people at the front of the race, it sounds like.
That's correct.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
you reroute the outbound.
Yeah, because I think I think it's getting close already. I mean, the front guys have gotten so fast that they're getting
6
off.
hours.
Right, they're getting off Columbine. They're getting through Twin Lakes Dam, down the big wide washboardy fire road and hitting the single track. And the last folks off the single track have barely cleared it. And this is before we're talking about before waves, folks. Those fast guys are already reaching that single track now. So certainly with the wave starts, it's going to happen. They're going to have to deal with it.
Yep. That's going to be an aspect of the race. This race, as it becomes bigger and faster and more diverse and a bucket list for every mountain biker who's ever lived, there's going to be complexity. And frankly, I find it intriguing. And I love that we are finding ways to add rules or changes to make it possible for more people to do it. I'm kind of a big tent guy, Leadville-wise. So that said, tradition does matter. And I will say that one of the traditions of this race is that it has had a lot of changes. I don't think anything is lost tradition-wise by being safer. And I think that one of the traditions I have never loved is having to get off my bike and walk due to a traffic jam. So that's kind of where I sit.
Yeah, try it. This is a smart thing to do, to go ahead and try it. Don't be afraid to admit if you got it wrong. And certainly, as Fatty mentioned, survey your racers and see what their experience was like.
Yep. So we'll look forward to seeing what that is like next year. Wow, we're already thinking about the 2020 race, Hottie. That's ridiculous. So we've been talking about the starting line and waves in this episode a lot, but you know what we haven't talked about a ton in this episode is the gear that makes a difference in getting up St. Kevin's. You know what my favorite secret piece of climbing gear is?
Secret piece of climbing gear?
Well, it's not a true secret.
It's not like pedals. Pedals would be wrong. I mean, wheels and tires, it would be an obvious choice.
They are, but you know what? The thing I love for climbing, standing climbing, when I'm on a single speed or a hardtail and I'm just rowing my bike and really putting my whole body into it, it's my Envy M5 mountain handlebar. This is an incredibly stiff, strong, super wide, 760 millimeter wide bar. And it makes such a huge difference to my climbing, just so stiff and just wide enough that you can really get a ton of leverage into it. Hands stay super comfortable because of the 9-degree sweep. And I have mine set up for a 5-degree drop, actually, just because with as a smaller person with a 29-inch wheeled bike, I'm looking for my bar to be a little bit lower, not a little bit higher. And it's light, it is wide, it is strong, it is comfortable. You can just really row this thing, and it just feels so good. I have one on my Epic, I have one on my Felt Hardtail, I have one on my single speed, and I will definitely put one on my Epic Hardtail, which I am building up this spring.
In fact, in a future episode, Fatty, we're going to hear from Envy on their bar stem combo. They've put a lot of work into this product, and we had some time. We spent some time with them talking about the new M Series bar and why it makes so much sense for the Leadville racer. Of course, you can learn more about all of Envy's wheels and components, many of which seem like they're made with the Leadville 100 in mind, but which can handle pretty much anything you throw at them for any terrain at Envy. That's ENVE.com. Fatty, of course, all of this wave start speculation and navel gazing is a lot of fun, but we should probably check in with someone who actually knows something about the why, how, and what of this change.
Yeah, as soon as I found out about this change, I texted Kimo Seymour, the Senior VP of Events and Media at Lifetime, in other words, the head honcho for the race series, and said, we need details for the podcast. And he was super good about finding a few minutes in his schedule for a phone call to answer my questions. Kimo, welcome back. Appreciate you taking a few minutes to answer a few questions about the wave starts.
Thanks, Eldon. Glad to be back.
Let's start with why this change. Is it a safety move, a congestion move, a way to get more people on the course? Why?
So honestly, Eldon, this came from the feedback that we've received from the athletes over the last few years. We do post-race surveys, and I can tell you that the single most common point of feedback that we get in those surveys is that there is too much traffic congestion, and it's a really poor experience that, 5, 6, 7 miles into the race, you're hopping off your bike and standing around and waiting and walking because, as we've got that funnel or that choke point down there at the bottom of St. Kevin's. We're constantly focused on, how can we improve the athlete experience at the races without, really materially changing or impacting the event. And, as you and I have discussed, over the years, the event has evolved, and you do. As event organizers, you have to make changes to keep your riders happy, and certainly safety is always a concern. I think I read some of the comments on the Facebook page, on the participants page, and sending 400 people off at a time versus 1,600 people at once. If they're going to be crashes, they're going to be crashes. If you send 20 people off at the same time, you could have crashes.
Sure,
so we certainly don't. Yeah, it's always possible, and I don't think 400 people going off at a time is necessarily going to reduce the potential for people crashing in that first few miles. But certainly I think the experience will get better for the athletes if we just spread them out a little bit more before they get to the bottom of St. Kevin's. I can tell you this has never been there's never been a part of the discussion around around getting more riders on course. As the event will, some years it's up 100 or 200 people, some years it's down 100 to 200 people, and that's all a factor of, people opting to defer, no-show rates, people, qualifying at the qualifiers, and instead of, say they qualify this year, but they opt to race next year. So that, we expand and contract a little bit just based on those variables, but we don't intend to, put, more people on the course because of this change. It's really about improving the experience based on the feedback we've received from the riders.
Let's move on to the why now question. You and I have talked about doing the wave start for years. Take us a little bit behind the scenes, and why did you go ahead and flip that switch for 2019?
Well, again, this last year with the surveys and the post-race surveys and the feedback we got, again, it was the single biggest or most common point of feedback was that's that is really the poor experience, that choke point at the bottom of St. Kevin. So we've talked about it for a while. We wanted the opportunity to really think through the impacts, as I think we'll talk about here shortly, throughout the race. And so we wanted to make sure that logistically we had a good plan around how we accommodate the rest of the day. So it just took a little bit of planning, and one of those, just wanted to make sure we were methodical and careful about it, and we didn't do something that had a negative effect on the rest of the race.
Let's go on to some of the things that this change is going to affect in the race. So the 12-hour shotgun is a big part of the tradition of the race. That is, 12 hours after the start, a shotgun is fired, and that it gives us a sense of, that was the moment that you needed to be across the finish line to get your silver buckle, right?
Right.
With the final racers now not crossing the starting line until probably 6:47 or so, 2 minutes after the final corral begins crossing the finish line, I'm wondering, should that 12-hour shotgun blast be moved to, say, 12 hours after the last person crosses the starting line? Or have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, we have actually. And first off, Ken pulls the trigger on that shotgun. He's probably going to pull a trigger whenever he damn well wants to. But so let me give you kind of what our thought process is here. So we're targeting, as you've probably seen, actually 4 minutes now. I think there was a little bit of conflict with that post. Sure. But I think we're gonna spread out the waves by 4 minutes. That means the last wave will go at 6:42 a.m. Okay. So that'll be the fourth wave. That means the final cutoff time should really be 6:42 p.m. Right. Right. Okay. And so we're going. Yeah. So I think the shotgun, if Ken will cooperate, will probably go off at 6:42. Now we give out buckles, as you probably know. We give out buckles based on chip time. Right. So we're going to give people their buckles based on their chip time. So you may have somebody that comes in under the 6:42, but that's over the 12-hour mark for their chip time. So we're working on logistically how we're going to display times for people so that as people come up and cross the finish line, we're hoping to have a system in place that'll kind of scroll times, everybody's actual chip time as they're coming across the finish line. So we'll know how close they are to the 12-hour cutoff. Because even right now, the gun goes off, and you might have 2 or 3 people come across the line after the 12-hour gun goes off that are still under the 12-hour cutoff because that took them, 3-4 minutes to get across the start line.
Sure, it's been years, I think, since the last Ass Over the Pass winner has actually crossed the finish line with or even before that shotgun blast, right? That is, the last Ass Over the Pass is generally someone who is a few corrals back, or several corrals, or all of the corrals back. And in fact, last episode of this podcast, when we did an interview with last year's last Ass Over the Pass, Mark Bates, he finished his race with 3 amazing seconds to spare, but the shotgun had gone off a few minutes before. Right. So, but that didn't have anything to do with him. So I do love the idea of having the shotgun blast be 12 hours after the last person begins their race. That gives me a good sense of what I ought to be sort of watching for and listening for. And this is new to me, that you're looking at having a clock showing the actual chip time of people as they cross the finish line. I would love to be able to see that, because that makes all the difference in the world. And whether you're finishing in 8 hours and 58 minutes, or whether you're finishing in 12 hours and 58 minutes, right?
Right. We think that'll be important, and we think that'll even be important for the spectators too, as they see their athletes coming up, up 6th Street. We'd love to be able to show where they are in comparison to that, either 9-hour or 12-hour cutoff for the, for those big buckles, the big buckle or small buckle.
If you can make it so that I can see, what their time is as they are coming to the finish line, oh man, that'll make it fun. So yeah, that's I'm stoked on that idea.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. We want to make sure that that gun goes off when, after the last, 12 hours after the last people got started the race. So that's really rightly where it should be, and want to get, those people have the opportunity to get in under that 12-hour mark, and we'll continue to use their chip time, not the gun time. So someone could conceivably come in, if it took them a couple minutes to get across the finish line, they could conceivably come in after the gun goes off and still be eligible for their buckle.
So let's talk about the folks who are in the white corral, because their situation is a little bit different than most of the other corrals. Everyone else in a corral has either done the Leadville 100 before, and so has been, by their finish time in this race, qualified into a certain corral, and so it makes sense where they are. Or they've qualified from one of the qualifiers into their position. But the folks in the white corral, they could be very fast, or they could be just, hoping and praying that they finish under 12 hours or 13 hours, right? So for the fast folks in the white corral, their race strategy has been for many years to be very aggressive at the beginning of the race, try to connect up with faster racers that they can then work with throughout the race. And some of them are, I think, justifiably worried that strategy is kind of out the window for them. What is your response to that this is going to make it harder for first-time fast guys at the back of the starting line?
Well, Eldon, it's tough to worry about every single person in the start gate and how they're going to end up with, the right people that they should be riding around. My comment would be that this is going to, excuse me, it's going to open up the field a little bit. I think it's going to open up the traffic in that first, say, 20 miles of the course. I would say that this probably gives them a better opportunity to work their way through the crowd. For those fast riders that, in their first, or, let's call it their first year, and, starting back in the white corral and having to work their way through the crowd, I'd rather have them doing that climbing St. Kevin's or climbing Sugarloaf than bombing down 6th Street and sprinting through and taking people out. And so therein, answers the question or the issue about safety that we discussed earlier. I think, the right time for those fast guys that are starting in the white corral to be moving up is on those first couple climbs. And by then, I think it'll be much more spread out than it has been the last few years. I think ultimately it will. I think it'll help them. I really do. I think sure it'll be tough to start. For some of those guys to start, say, 12 minutes behind, the lead guys, and thinking that certainly they're not going to bridge up to the lead pros by any stretch. But I think the course will be more wide open to them. I would argue too that. And I've mentioned this to you in the past, I think, on one of your shows, that, early on, I think it's, even for the fast guys, you have to pace yourself early. And guys go just like a bat out of hell out of the start gate, and, thinking they're going to win the race in the first 5 miles or first 20 miles. And that doesn't usually happen. So actually, I don't think it's ever happened. So, I would argue that this, it'll spread out the field a little bit. It certainly should be safer. I think there'll be more room, especially for those fast guys, on that climb up St. Kevin's and then certainly up Sugarloaf. I think the impacts will be positive.
Fair enough. So let's talk a little bit about folks who are, really concerned about finishing in 12 hours or even in 13 hours. There are, of course, cutoff times along the course. How will those times be affected by this change?
So in general, we'll back up each of those cutoff times by the 12 minutes.
Okay.
That will give, obviously, more time to some people that may have started in the earlier, in a couple of the earlier waves, but I don't think we will have people that I don't think we'll have people starting in the first three waves that would normally be impacted by the cutoff times, because you have to qualify for those earlier waves, right? You have to have a time that gets you put in those earlier corrals, if you will. So we're really looking at probably mostly people in the white corral, and so we have decided to add 12 minutes on to the cutoff times. Now, the cutoff times have fluctuated over the years, and we're always looking at those. We do have to we have to make sure. Obviously, we want to. We need to be cautious about letting people, out on the course too long, as you know, for a variety of reasons, weather and whatnot. And so we always are analyzing the cutoff times. And that brings up another issue with the outbound, the single track, the outbound and then the return on that single track. And so that's the one piece of the equation we still need to kind of figure out, because we conceivably, we could have people still outbound, hitting that, on that single track, when the pros and the lead riders, probably say the top 50 riders returning, could be coming back and hitting that single track. So, but that's an issue that we've dealt with even now, and we always advise the slower riders that they need to give way to the returning riders. So we have considered adding a cutoff at outbound at Pipeline. We haven't had one traditionally, but that is something that we have considered as well, just for safety, and the reality is, some of the people that are getting through there are coming in way over the outbound cutoff at Twin Lakes. So we have considered that, that we may end up putting in a cutoff at the outbound pipeline.
So are you looking at actually giving an alternate course to the outbound racers who would otherwise be encountering the inbound racers?
I would say this is one piece that we are still trying to figure out the logistics. Yeah, so there is an option for a reroute that after a certain time we could reroute them down to that that dirt road where the single track dumps you out onto that dirt road on the outbound. There is an option to reroute to get the slower riders down there. We don't like that option necessarily. It is a possibility. There is the possibility of just having volunteers kind of gauge, traffic, these riders as they're coming, through there, the outbound riders, the slower riders coming through there. Right. There's the option of the cutoff. So short answer is yes, we're still working on the logistics for what we're going to do at that single track with this 12-minute, potential 12-minute, is the last wave. Sure. So there'll be more to come on that one.
I'm going to ask you one bonus question, and this one's from Hottie. He texted it in for me. He, like a lot of roadies, is very excited about the Pro EF team and that they are bringing some racers to Leadville. Do you know who and how many they're going to be putting in the field for the Leadville 100? What do you know?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So we've been working obviously closely with EF. As you know, we've also recently acquired the Dirty Kansas race, and so we've been working on a deal with them as they've Education First has wanted to really expand some of the types of courses and the types of events that their professional world tour riders are doing, and they've obviously got Dirty Kansas and Leadville on their list. The plan right now, obviously, they're going to be, high up there in the rankings and with the pro field, and as you know, we've always reserved a number of slots for pros for the race, and at this point, I'm hearing it'll be something like 3 to 4 riders from EF that'll be coming. They've given me some names of riders that are interested, but they don't want us to release any names just because it really depends on their racing schedule, and their racing schedules all can change based on results in certain races. I think based on injuries and whatnot. So they want to they're kind of closely guarding who they think will do which event. But I can say it's going to be really exciting. I mean, to have any of their riders up there will be really, really fun. They've been really fun and good to work with. They're just a great company. I think they're doing great things in the world of cycling. And I think some of the changes and some of their initiatives are really going to have a positive effect on cycling, in general in the United States and around the world.
Well, I'll be looking forward to seeing some blisteringly fast times out on the course. Who knows? I mean, we could be looking at 2019 being a new record on the course. I think that is entirely plausible. Of course, weather and course conditions and who knows what else, depending. This race is not just about legs. It is about luck, too. So
it is.
I do think if all goes well, we could be seeing something brand new. Kimo, it is always a pleasure talking with you. Some good information there, and look forward to seeing you at the Columbine Turnaround in 2019.
Sounds good, Eldon. Thanks very much.
Yeah, big thanks to Kimo Seymour, Senior VP of Events and Media at Lifetime. That's some good information about this change.
Yeah, it is, Hottie. Kimo's always super good about letting us know what's going on and why with this race. Now, before we close this show, I want to get back to basics on one thing. This has been a real inside baseball episode, like even more than most, if that's possible. But when it comes right down to it, you've got to do this race with the basics. The training, the food, the bike, the tools, the gear you need to take care of yourself and your bike while you are on the course.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you've got to carry what you need. A mountain bike rule number one, you fix your own bike. It's up to you to have what you need and be able to fix your bike. We're big fans of doing so with Banjo Brothers bags. Not the fixing, but the carrying what you need. I'm using the frame pack to hold everything I need.
Yep, and I am using the medium deluxe seat bag to hold everything that I need. And there's a reason both of us stick with Banjo Brother bags on our bikes. They work effectively, they work reliably. I've just never had an issue with them for holy cow, at least 20 years that I've been using Banjo Brothers.
And here's another reason to have Banjo Brothers on your bike. You can get a 20% discount off your order by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites. Banjo Brothers, tough, practical, and affordable, Minneapolis-based. They've been in business since 2003, and they're just darn good guys. To get 15% off your order, go to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites.
Yeah, and I'm doing some math now, and since they've been in business since 2003, I guess it hasn't been 20 years that I've been using their bags.
Feels like
but
it.
Let's say it close to 16, man. When you're as old as me, everything feels like at least 20 years. So yeah, 20% off if you sign up with their newsletter. It is worth it for sure, and their bags are cheap to start with, and oh man, they're good. So closing question for you, Hottie. With this change to a wave start, do corrals even matter now?
I think they do because they put you in a spot with like-minded riders. When you're looking around in the Red Corral, you're with your Red Corral peeps. It's like suddenly you've been put together with folks that are in that same genre of riding. You're pretty much the same speed, at least you should be. So as you set out on your journey, at least for the first third of the race, you're going to be with folks who probably have the same goal, who are probably trying to ride roughly the same pace, which is great because then you don't have to try and guess as to whether or not you can go with a certain group or not. You're grouped with them already. So I still like it. I like the fact that it gives the race a certain pecking order. It gives also, I think it helps. I think corrals also help the Leadville family or the Leadville race as a whole because it allows those race series and those qualifiers to continue to be supported. Corrals are a reason to get into the qualifiers and go ahead and try and move up. So yeah, I think corrals do still matter.
Yeah. And I think they matter for exactly the reason that you were saying. For me, moving up in a corral has always been moving toward the front of the start of the race. That's pretty much been the main focus for me. I think I will continue to think about corrals, but I think I'm going to be thinking about them for a different reason, and that's what you were talking about. Get to the corral that is going to be the folks that you are most likely to be able to work with, to be able to help each other, to, you are with the people who have a similar time goal as you do. So for me, if I work my way, try my best to get into the red corral, it's going to be because I want to hopefully get an faster than 8:15 time in Leadville, which, that would be a dream come true. If I, for some reason, am one corral back, that doesn't mean anything other than, I'm going to have to perhaps work a little bit harder, but I am going to be with a group of people who also want to work a little bit harder. So I'm excited for this change. Looking forward to seeing what this year brings.
Yeah, look at any of the World Cup racing, mountain bike World Cup racing, or cyclocross for that matter, and start placement is everything in those races. I mean, you need to be on those front rows to have a chance at winning a rainbow jersey or grabbing a World Cup race or even winning some normal mountain bike race, your local mountain bike race. Start position is important. I think it's still important at Leadville, being at the front of your wave, being the next wave up, whatever, what have you, is always going to put you in a better spot to have a better day at Leadville. Well, that's it for this episode of the Leadville 100 podcast, presented by Floyd's of Leadville. If you're into our little show, please give us a 5-star rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. It'll help others who've caught this endurance cycling bug find us. Meanwhile, if you have ideas or questions for us, head to the Leadville100podcast.com website comment section and get in touch.
Yeah. And while you are on your computer, take a second, follow me on Twitter. I am @FatCyclist. Find Hottie @MichaelHoughton. And you can find us both on Facebook. We are both active in the Leadville 100 MTB participants group. That is where this whole conversation came from in the first place. Friend us. Hey, we'll friend you back. Also, happy to take your DMs. Guys, gals, good luck in your training. Thanks for listening, and we will see you at the start line, no matter what wave you're in.
Yeah, and hey, do you think they'll fire a shotgun blast for each wave?
Oh, they gotta.